Hey everybody, my name is Cougar Driven, and this is Thinking Out Loud About Star Trek. Now, today we're going to be covering the third episode of the first season of the original series, Where No Man Has Gone Before, which originally aired on September 22nd, 1966. This is an interesting one as it introduces the idea of Jim Kirk having a life outside the Enterprise because the central focus is the character of Gary Mitchell, Kirk's basically his best friend prior to being on the Enterprise. Because as we all know, after being on the Enterprise, his best friends are Spock and McCoy. But this is, kind of the old Kirk passing away, as it were, because Gary Mitchell is the... Okay, so let's get right onto it. The Enterprise, this is Stardate 1312.4, by the way. 1312.4 to 1313.8, to be exact. Now, Where No Man Has Gone Before. So, Where No Man... It starts with the Enterprise at the Galactic Barrier. Now, that's a hell of a ways off, even by the standards of Star Trek. This is... It's kind of ridiculous in that, Voyager maintains that the Delta Quadrant is 75 years away, 70,000 light years away, and so therefore 75 years away at maximum warp. But the USS Enterprise visits the galactic barrier in the 2260s, and then 20 years later in the late 2280s visits the galactic core. But if I'm understanding it correctly, that should be physically impossible because it would have taken the 20 years plus some just to travel that distance. So I don't really know what the hell's going on with that. It's just a minor thing that I noticed. But anyway, it starts with the Enterprise is about to cross the galactic barrier, and they find basically a disaster recorder from a ship that disappeared hundreds of years ago called the SS Valiant. And the Valiant, they recover it, they read it, and they're in the process of reading it, and the Valiant destroyed the ship. The Valiant destroyed itself by order of the captain, and they were really interested in humans having ESP, and that's a little weird, but apparently ESP is taken for granted in humans in Starfleet. That's a thing. But, Kirk decides, well, you know what? The ship was destroyed after it left the galaxy and came back. So what we're going to do is we're going to go outside the galaxy and see what's there. And they do, and there's a barrier. And they try to go through the barrier, and it fucks them up pretty badly. Wipes out the warp drive entirely, and affects two crew members, Kirk's best friend Gary Mitchell, and a new medical officer, Dr. Elizabeth Daner, a psychiatrist. Both of them are affected in a weird way by the galactic barrier or whatever it is. And they both wake up and it's fine, but Mitchell has these weird silver eyes, and he starts talking funny and acting like people are beneath him, and after a couple of incidents where he starts moving levers on the ship from 3 or 4 decks away, Spock, the dispassionate Vulcan that he is, says, "You have to maroon him on this planet Delta Vega." We'll come back to Delta Vega later. But it's like he says, you have to maroon him on this planet Delta Vega, or you're gonna have to kill him. There's no way to go in between it. And Kirk doesn't want to do it, but Spock convinces him that at the very least he needs to maroon him. And so they go see Mitchell, and in the process Mitchell reveals that he knows that they want to maroon him or kill him, and so he attacks them. But they overpower him because he's still more or less human. They overpower him, knock him out, and take him to the transporter room where he says, "I'll crush you all like flies." Oh yeah, he called himself a god before he attacked them. So he says, I'll crush you all like flies, and their response is dose, and they take him down to Delta Vega, where they're replenishing, they're fixing the warp drive, basically. They're trying to recharge the engines. And that works out alright. They recharge the engines, but as they're about to beam back up, Mitchell kills the helmsman Lee Kelso, who is on a self-destruct button, and then he escapes and takes down Kirk, Spock, and Dr. Mark Piper, who is Leonard McCoy's predecessor in the chief medical officer thing. And I think you see him a couple more times before McCoy takes over fully. But Kirk orders Piper and Spock to go back to the ship and stays behind to hunt Daner and Mitchell, because Daner has joined Mitchell at this point because she's starting to develop powers now too. And so he hunts him, and Gary sees him coming from way off, and he sends Elizabeth Daner to he sends her to meet with Kirk and see how unimpressive he is. But Kirk tries to appeal to her humanity and the fact that she's a psychiatrist, and basically there's this kind of long fight. There's this long argument. Gary creates a grave and a headstone and forces Kirk to like bow down and pray to him. At which point Kirk mentions absolute power corrupting absolutely, and Daner turns on Mitchell. They fight, drains Gary's power. Kirk beats him up, bests him in a fist fight, and is about to crush his head with a rock when he stops to apologize. Gary gets his power back, almost kills Kirk. Kirk manages to get the drop on him, fires a phaser rifle into a rock, which falls and kills Mitchell. Presumably kills Mitchell. There's actually no clarification on whether he's actually dead. And then Daner dies of like exhaustion or whatever right after. So both of the powered people die, and the Enterprise moves on. Now, I maintained the entire purpose of doing this was to talk about the morals of Star Trek. I'm convinced that almost every episode has a lesson to be told, or just something to think about. And in this case, it is the idea of absolute power corrupting absolutely. It's the idea that Gary Mitchell came upon power and was just seduced by the power. It's, it's not that he had the power and then an evil force made him more, convinced him to be more evil. Like, he just straight up was evil because he had this power, and I don't know if that's a fair way of looking at it, but, it is what it is. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, though. I mean, there's no question that treating people as lesser beings is unethical. I believe one of my favorite ways of putting this is never punch down. If you've got to go after somebody, always punch up. Go after someone who can take it, so to speak, who has more, you don't kick someone while they're down. And by the same token, if you have more net power than someone, don't just abuse that power and make them feel little. And, it's really unethical and fucked up, and you shouldn't do it. And this episode, that's the darker side of Gary Mitchell, because, and to be fair, it's also said that Gary Mitchell wasn't actually like that before the power. So it implies that the power itself did this corrupting, turned him into someone he was not. And is that possible? Is the existence of power sufficient to change someone's entire psyche? Is, like, I live a relatively unimportant life. I go to college. I do some work here and there when there's work available. I don't have any real power. If I woke up tomorrow and I was elected and I was, appointed governor of the state, would that change who I am? And I don't know. So, that's something to think about. A little bit of a shorter episode today. Oh, you know what? The death total. I almost forgot that. 9 people died aboard the Enterprise during the events of the crossing of the galactic barrier, and 3 deaths. Other than that happened. Lee Kelso was strangled. Gary Mitchell was crushed to death. We're just going to presume he's dead. And Elizabeth Daner died of exhaustion. No red shirts have died yet. This episode did introduce one Montgomery Scott, though, so that's interesting. So Mr. Scott is there. But yeah, shorter episode. If you like it, leave a like. If you have anything to say about what I was talking about absolute power and whether or not power can corrupt on that kind of level, leave me a comment. And if you like this and you want to see more, click the subscribe button. Why not? It is a Wednesday video, so I will see you guys tomorrow for the next episode of the show, which is The Naked Time. So until then, my name is Cougar Driven. This has been Thinking Out Loud About Star Trek. Peace.